The story of how Tony Hsu became a billionaire by starting DoorDash. Tony Hsu was born in 1985 and grew up in San Francisco. His parents were Chinese immigrants who had come to the U.S. from Taiwan in the 1970s. Tony was a good student and graduated from Lowell High School in 2003 before going to Stanford University. While there, he studied both political science and economics, but his true passion was entrepreneurship. He didn't want to work for someone else. Instead, he wanted to start his own company one day. After graduating from Stanford in 2007 with honors, Tony went to work at a financial firm called Omidyar Network. However, this did not last long because after 3 years, Tony left to join another company called Red Swoosh. He worked there as a product manager until 2013 when he left to start his own company called Palo Alto Delivery. This is the company that would later become known as DoorDash. At the time, food delivery services were not very popular because they were expensive. For example, if you wanted to order from your favorite restaurant but it didn't deliver, then you had to pay a delivery fee of around $5 plus a service fee of around $2, which was way too much for most people. So they just ended up picking up their food themselves. But Tony thought there was an opportunity to create a better and cheaper service. That's why he launched Palo Alto Delivery in 2013. The idea was simple. He wanted to connect local restaurants that did deliver with drivers who could make the deliveries for them. It was a win-win situation. Restaurants could expand their reach to new customers without having to invest in their own delivery infrastructure, and drivers could earn some extra money on the side. However, getting started was not easy. Tony had to work hard to convince restaurants and drivers to sign up for his service. He spent his days cold calling potential customers and his nights driving for Uber to make ends meet. But slowly things started to turn around. As more and more people signed up, the platform started to gain momentum, and soon enough, Palo Alto Delivery became profitable. But Tony was not done yet. He wanted to expand his business beyond Palo Alto, so in 2014, he renamed the company DoorDash and set his sights on new markets. At first, expansion was slow because Tony was still working on perfecting his delivery model. He wanted to make sure that every delivery was perfect before he expanded to new cities. But as time went on, he got more and more confident and DoorDash started to grow rapidly. By the end of 2015, DoorDash was operating in over 10 cities, and by 2016, they were doing over 1 million deliveries per month. In 2016, DoorDash was growing fast, but they were still a small business. They only had about 50 employees, and most of their revenue was coming from just a few big cities. Tony knew that if he wanted to keep growing, he needed to expand to new markets. But he also knew that they couldn't do this alone. He needed investors. So he started pitching potential investors. Many investors were interested in DoorDash, but they were hesitant to invest money without seeing proof that the business model worked on a larger scale. Tony knew this, and he had already started working on a plan to prove them wrong. He knew that if he could show investors that DoorDash could be successful in a small town, then they would be more likely to invest in the company. So he set his sights on a small town in North Carolina called Chapel Hill. When Tony and his team arrived in Chapel Hill, they quickly realized that this was not going to be an easy market to crack. The town was home to the University of North Carolina, and many students who were used to getting their food delivered by services like Uber and Postmates. Tony knew that if he wanted to succeed in Chapel Hill, then he needed to offer something that these students had never seen before. So he decided to launch a new feature called Dash Pass. With Dash Pass, students could get unlimited free deliveries for a monthly fee of $9.99. It was a risk, but it paid off. Students loved the convenience of getting free deliveries, and DoorDash quickly became the go-to delivery service in Chapel Hill. In fact, within just a few months of launching Dash Pass, DoorDash was doing over 1,000 deliveries per day in Chapel Hill. It was exactly the proof that Tony needed. With this success under his belt, he went back to investors and asked them for $12 million, and they agreed. This investment allowed DoorDash to expand to new markets and hire new employees. For example, they used some of the money to acquire a company called Boku, which gave them access to over 100,000 restaurants. They also used some of the money to improve their technology. For example, they launched a new app that allowed customers to track their orders in real time. All of these improvements helped DoorDash to grow even faster. By the end of 2017, they were doing over 10 million deliveries per month. By 2018, DoorDash was delivering food all over the United States. They had become one of the largest delivery services in the country. But despite their success, they were still facing challenges. For example, they were constantly under pressure to keep improving their technology and their delivery times. Not only that, but they were also facing competition from other delivery services like Uber Eats, Grubhub, and Postmates. These companies were all fighting for market share and no one was willing to give up. So, Tony knew that if he wanted to keep growing, he needed to find a way to differentiate himself from the competition. He needed to find a way to offer something that no other delivery service could match. He knew what the answer was, but it wasn't easy to implement. He needed to focus on customer service. To differentiate itself from the competition, DoorDash decided to focus on customer service. This meant hiring the best drivers and providing them with the best training. It also meant investing in technology that made it easier for customers to track their orders and communicate with drivers. The goal was simple: make every customer feel like they were DoorDash's only customer. This strategy paid off. Customers loved the personal touch, and DoorDash quickly started to get a lot of positive reviews online. In fact, DoorDash became the highest-rated delivery service in the United States according to a survey conducted by Consumer Reports. This was a major achievement for DoorDash, especially considering the amount of competition that they were facing. It proved that if you focus on customer service, then you can succeed even in the most competitive industries. This brings us to the present day. Today, DoorDash is one of the biggest delivery services in the world. They deliver food from over 390,000 restaurants in 7,200 plus cities and employ over 300,000 drivers. DoorDash has also gone public and is now valued at over $72 billion, and Tony Xu is now worth over $7 billion. So how did DoorDash become so successful? Well, it all started with a simple idea: make it easier for customers to get their food delivered. Of course, this is easier said than done. There were many challenges along the way, but Tony Xu and his team were able to overcome them by focusing on customer service and investing in technology. The moral of the story is that if you focus on making your customers happy, then you will eventually be rewarded. Now, let's talk about some of the key takeaways from this video. First of all, entrepreneurship is not easy. If you want to start a business, then you need to be prepared to work hard and make sacrifices. Tony Xu did exactly that. He put everything into DoorDash and eventually became one of the youngest billionaires in the world. Secondly, innovation is important, but it's not everything. Yes, it helps to have a unique idea, but it's even more important to execute that idea well. DoorDash is not the first delivery service. In fact, there are many other delivery services out there, but DoorDash was able to stand out by focusing on customer service and investing in technology. Lastly, never give up. There were many times throughout DoorDash's history where they could have easily given up. For example, when they were rejected by investors or when they were competing against bigger companies like Uber and Grubhub. But Tony Xu and his team never did. They believed in their vision and eventually achieved success. If you want to be successful, then don't ever give up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos about business and entrepreneurship. Also check out this video next.